The Changeover is back with another episode. This week,
the supply and demand equation in content has just totally flipped. We can literally take anything and create anything at scale, but your limiting factor is not time to produce content. If you can reposition as a writer, content person, or whatever medium you're in, to really be like, hey, I am exceptional at finding original, compelling inputs. And again, this could be things like original data, awesome interviews with really smart people, proprietary frameworks. And then I would use AI in this machine to basically scale up that original input into whatever channel or medium or approach our strategy has dictated. You are probably no longer going to predominantly be the one doing the work. You're going to be orchestrating and managing and overseeing. There's plenty of skills and domains and things that humans will be doing, but a lot of the stuff that we do in marketing and sales, the best marketers and salespeople are going to inherently be managing these systems.
Welcome back to The Changeover. I'm Phillip, and this is part 2 of my conversation with Mike Kaput, Chief Content Officer at Marketing AI Institute and SmarterX. In part 1, we talked about where most B2B marketing teams actually are on AI adoption, the middle market's particular challenge, and the structural moves that separate piloting from scaling. If you missed that one, it's a good idea to go back and start there. But from here, we're getting into the execution side of things, systems, workflows, and tools. Welcome back, Mike.
Hey, thanks.
So let's start with what I personally think is the most important distinction for content-focused marketers right now. And that's the difference between using AI for content and having an AI-assisted content system. From your perspective, what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's plenty of content professionals out there doing really cool stuff individually with AI, which is amazing. I would just argue at the organizational level, to your point, you kind of just need a repeatable system and a content, what I might call like a content machine that anyone can operate if possible. Now, I realize, different people are going to be critical to the process, but you do want to be thinking of it as an overall system. So we spend a lot of time, especially like thinking through the strategy, the strategic assumptions behind how content is going to change thanks to AI, and also just what the nature of that machine looks like. So I can kind of like sketch out really quickly just how I would think about it. But, a system is obviously person independent. So what we're really trying to figure out is first we focus on what are the inputs that we are trying to use for the content goals we have. Obviously, everyone's got different content strategy, different goals, different things they would like to produce. I would actually argue just at a first principles level, what you kind of need to understand is that the supply and demand equation in content has just totally flipped. We can literally take anything and create anything at scale. It's not always good. There's a lot of engineering involved to get it right. And I'm not saying people should go just create a bunch of slop or anything, but
right. There's plenty of that already, right?
100%. Yeah. And I would never advocate that, but your limiting factor is not time to produce content. I will tell you that right now. Like, you can literally click a button, and depending on the input, which is the key here, you can get basically unlimited output. So what that means, I think, in practice for this machine is a lot of your time and energy and resources should probably be spent on figuring out the inputs. You want unique, original inputs that, frankly, nobody else has or AI has not learned. That is the only content I would argue it's probably worth producing moving forward. And it's still plenty, like it's more than
enough. And I would add, that's where the argument lies against AI will steal your job. Am I right?
If you can pivot or reposition what you do to be focused on that. We talked a lot about this actually at our AI for Writers Summit the other month. I did a keynote on this where, if you can reposition as a writer, content person, whatever medium you're in, to really be like, hey, I am exceptional at finding original, compelling inputs. And again, this could be things like original data, like what we've discussed on the previous episode. It could be just awesome interviews with really smart people. It could be proprietary frameworks, ways of thinking or synthesizing things that your firm has done. IP, obviously, is the kind of natural outgrowth of that. But any of that is super helpful because I can't get it anywhere else. AI can't tell it to me. And then I would use AI in this machine to basically scale up that original input into whatever channel or medium or approach our strategy has dictated. So, there's a lot of moving pieces to it, but I think once you start thinking about it that way, you start to see, okay, the typical way of doing things is probably getting a bit flipped on its head, and we should probably be building a machine around how do the humans go get all the inputs, and then what are the really interesting things we can start doing with those inputs? That's where AI takes the wheel.
And discovering there's so much more you can do now that you've earned that time back, right? And you're distributing the knowledge in new ways and additional ways. And that can be really helpful, especially right now where we know, from a marketer's perspective, it's really important to be in a lot more spaces than just your website. And so AI, I think, is really going to help marketers achieve that goal of making sure they're distributing that content more effectively across a larger landscape.
For sure.
So when we're talking about that whole under-resourced problem, right, a couple of people running the whole function, let's say sales and marketing, it's one department, it's two people. For a lean team like that, what is that AI system going to look like? Is it a tool? Is it something that they already have? What should they be thinking about, and what should they be prioritizing?
Yeah, if I was a lean team, and again, kind of with the caveat we talked about in the previous episode, that the best AI is the one you've already got in your existing systems if you're having problems with procurement, with budget, with adoption. But if I'm a lean team, I want one of the top frontier models. I want ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini with adequate usage limits, because that's going to give you the most flexibility and versatility. And the reason I say I would want a frontier model right now is because, again, your job is now going to be gathering data. And I say this in a broad sense because I think the key unlock here is understanding that language is now data for AI. Because these are large language models, because they understand language really well, anything that you speak, anything that's written down is really good material. And by that, I mean, I don't think you're probably served on that lean team as sitting in front of a blank page and typing out your thoughts. I'd be moving very fast towards having people interview me, or interviewing subject matter experts, or capturing all the meetings and calls we have in audio and text form, because then this all just becomes raw material that we can then endlessly use, reuse, and remix using any of the common frontier models out there. So that's really, I think we're in a you're spending a huge amount of time on those original inputs, and then the rest of it is just mining material from the stuff you already do. And then AI is going to shape that into the content that you need to create. That is exactly how I'd be approaching this. And I'd be or the marketing material or the sales material, whether it's from the meetings you have, the calls you have, the interviews you do, or just the systems you can hopefully give it access to, your Slack, email, et cetera, all of this stuff. And I'm not saying everyone can do that. If you can, great. If not, no worries. Or maybe you're just having it do research on the social media forums or the Reddit threads that you are relevant to your market, to your industry, what have you. All these things that are already documented and conversations already happening. Your job is now just to mine those, I would say, for really good content. And you may be doing AI-assisted research and stuff as well, but that is how I would accelerate, is anything that I would be building systems or processes to get everything and anything that is spoken or in someone's head documented somewhere, cataloged somewhere, because then AI can go wild with that.
Right, because that's material. That's what it is. Yeah. So let's flip it over to the sales side and talk a little bit about AI-assisted prospecting. What's useful right now, what you're seeing the most success with in terms of use cases, and where you're seeing things kind of flop, right? Or maybe people put a little too much trust in using an AI tool when they should be maybe paying closer attention to outputs.
Yeah, so in full disclosure, I'm really only starting to dabble in a lot of the AI prospecting use cases myself. And so I can speak to kind of some experiments we've started to do and things I've observed. And also I've been on the receiving end
There you go.
of AI prospecting. So I can also share that. But basically, we've started experimenting with, okay, how can a tool like, let's say, a more agentic tool like a Claude Code or Cowork or Codex from OpenAI, how can these tools really add value to the prospecting process? And the first thing here, and it probably won't come as a surprise given our focus on like taking a step back and thinking about your strategy, is like, do these people, is there any value in them hearing from you? If you don't solve that problem, if you do not have something useful, like, I don't mind if someone emails me I don't know. I mind that it's like completely irrelevant to anything I do, right? So like it would be a joy to be cold prospected for something I was interested in that I didn't know about. Honestly, it genuinely would. Like, obviously I don't want 1 million emails a day, but the right email, I'll be like, oh, that's an amazing event or offer or course. I'm absolutely going to bookmark that. I never would have found that. That's cool. Given that, if you can nail that part down, then I would say that some of these tools are getting really good at, it's the scale piece of it, right? It's like if you can find the right list, and that's a big if, obviously, then these tools I was able to build in an hour with knowing like nothing about how to do this. I was able to build in an hour. I had a prospecting list I was given of 250 people. And so just to kind of walk through the steps I would have normally done. And again, I'm a novice at this, so maybe there's a better way I should have been doing it. But for me, the way I had to do it was we were going to email people individually about a very value-driven, relevant offer that was happening regionally for them that was relevant to their businesses. We got the list. I have a really solid, like very non-committal, like pretty well targeted template email. And I've got 250 names and email addresses, and I need to email each one of them personally. So typically in the past, I would have just pasted all those that template 1 million times into emails, put names on all of them, put the email addresses in. I guarantee you I was screwed some up because like that kind of monotonous work, it's like you start glazing over after a while. And then I would have sent out all the emails. Well, in an hour, just like asking dumb questions back and forth with a tool like Claude Code, it was actually able to build something, an HTML kind of email hub, I would say. So you open this right in your browser. It's got my templated email customized 250 different times to the exact email and first name of everyone, and a little button that says open this in Gmail. It opens it in Gmail, the full email. All I have to do is hit send. So I was done in 25 minutes with all 250 emails. Probably would have taken me hours before. That's like a small scenario, but the ability to just do that and build things and code on the fly is really, really powerful when you have the right list, when you have the right approach, because you then start to say, well, like, why do we have to do this the old way? And that doesn't even get into, I actually had someone text me today after hearing us talk about this on our podcast, about this concept of like vibe prospecting, where there's this, where from vibe coding is the popularized vibe term, but like this idea that with the right guidance and a little bit of the right data, perhaps from LinkedIn Sales Navigator or even just your own context given to AI, some of these tools are very, very good now at actually finding who are the handful of the right people that would be, based on their public profiles, based on the assumptions the AI is making, would be really interested in your outreach. And you can then even automate that quite a bit if you want as the next step. But even just finding the right people, AI is getting really good at.
Yeah. And I found too, the things that you can dig around in now, for example, with Claude and Chrome, it's just opening up new ways to discover information that I think are really, really going to be useful for the teams like that. So want to fast forward here to the tool stack for a team, right? The things that you would really bet on. We're thinking about, obviously, 6 months from now is pretty mysterious in the world of AI. But if you're really thinking about what you would really bank on right now for a sales and marketing team, what are the things that they should be investing in?
Yeah, so I'll kind of keep this, I think, broad because, and to reiterate what I talked about in the previous episode, plain and simple, step one is like, maximize the value out of the AI and the systems you already have and pay for. And I know we talked about this, but I can't emphasize it enough. Like, if you're trying to add on more complexity without having already used that, if the AI in your current tools can't do stuff, or you don't like how it does stuff and you want to add more tools, have at it. That's amazing. But I would really strongly encourage being a realist about this. The technology is like one small piece of the problem. This is not fundamentally a technology problem. Adoption is not a technology problem. It's a change management and people problem. So I am going to definitely be focused on what is going to be the easiest thing for my team to actually dive in and start using and adopting. And again, like we talked about in the previous episode, time is such a limiting factor that anything that is going to take more time doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but it's a lower chance that your team widely at scale is going to do it. So start with what you've already got, audit what AI capabilities there actually are. If you're not using them, start using them would be my first move. And then again, I would go to that tier 2 technology of like, get yourself a really solid frontier model and get people using it. Now, I'm not going to like knock on the third-party vendors out here. There's plenty of really good third-party vendors and tools. But again, it's like, if you haven't gotten the maximum value out of what you already have, and you are not killer with at least ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or Gemini, I don't even know what you're trying to do with a third-party tool.
With a wrapper.
Unless it does something that just you fundamentally don't know how to do with a frontier model, great. And I'm not saying never use a third-party tool. We use plenty of them. We love them. But from team adoption and from a friction perspective, go in that order and make sure you are absolutely sure you are doing everything you can. Like, if you're talking to me about trying to buy third-party tools and you haven't built your own GPT yet, or like built GPTs for everything, or started to experiment with the agentic capabilities or connectors or tools in ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, then I don't know what we're doing here.
Right. I think those frontier models, they encourage so much exploration and sort of self-education that they really do help at the individual level. They help people get into that headspace in ways that if you hand them a specialized tool, that's a whole different training demand. So I think that's great advice. And of course, I'm going to mention it again, the Scaling AI course that I went through before we had this conversation, and which really I do recommend. I mean, I walked away and I was like, okay, we need to build out this roadmap. We need to do these things. We need to assess the impact of AI on the different roles and the jobs we do. It has a framework for evaluating, prioritizing those tools, and if you can help people again, just really get a solid grasp on, 1, 2, 3. What are these things that maybe they aren't thinking about when they're thinking about, I need a tool for this? What are the biggest hangups, the snags that they could expect in terms of, you didn't make a great choice, or you thought this tool looked awesome and now nobody can use it, or, the things that happen when you actually try to roll things out.
Yeah, for sure. So again, to reiterate, if you don't know what use case or problem you're trying to solve with the tool, that's a huge issue. You're going to be sunk without knowing that. So that's, like we had discussed previously, really important. 2, once you get into the tool itself, you have to just be very, very skeptical of all the claims being made about the tool, because in theory, they're correct. The AI itself is capable of working wonders. I can tell you that. But again, it's not because you click a button and everything works. It's because you take the time to develop AI literacy on your team. Your team knows what AI is, what it can do, what it means for them, and how to actually get those results. That alone will get you further than any special tool, I would say. So basic AI literacy is critical. And then having a way to actually evaluate success. I wouldn't be piloting a bunch of different tools at the same time. I'd be starting with one pilot for one use case or problem, and then I would be benchmarking, what does success actually look like? How do we do it today? What are the results of how we do it today, whether that's how much time you spend on it, the output you get, et cetera. What would success look like 90 days from now if we want to evaluate if this tool actually works?
So if we look out on the horizon a little bit, we're looking at agentic AI. It's coming. It's here. It's here. I mean, Claude Cowork, jump in, see what it can do. It's amazing, right? And it really is amazing, agentic AI. And it's also a little bit scary, right? Because it can do things for you, and you better know what it's going to be doing. 51% of people, professionals, say that they want training on AI agents. That's a lot of attention, right? So what do we need to do today to get people in a place where they are ready to start working with agents?
Well, I'll tell you at the organizational level, and this is a big lift, is you need to figure out what your policy is towards agents, because agents need access to systems. Agents work autonomously in certain contexts. Like, agents require, quite simply, permissions and access to different things to be able to work effectively. I'm not saying you should give an agent access to everything, but like an agent in a vacuum that isn't allowed to do anything is not going to do anything useful for you that AI today can't just help you with. So it really is like it's a coworker. You are bringing on a new hire. It just happens to not be a human being.
Right.
So you need to think about, and this is really hard because I don't have a lot of concrete answers here. We're all still figuring this out because agents have only very recently gotten pretty good and now are really viable, in my opinion. But you need to figure out what are and aren't we comfortable with when it comes to agents. You need to educate your team on what the heck these even are, because the term agent is unfortunately being like totally corrupted by people selling agents. Some people call workflows agents, which is not how I would categorize it. But you do want to really communicate to your team that these are fundamentally different from most things that they have used in the past. These are autonomous, they are non-deterministic, they are very prone to totally unanticipated, both amazing things they can do and also disasters that can happen. So I would highly, highly recommend you start having right now, maybe it's even an agent-specific policy, not just an overall AI policy. That is step one, absolutely. Because like, unless you're a very small shop and you're highly comfortable with risk, you can't just turn on an agent and give it access to all your files or give it access to your email, because again, it's not necessarily going to go crazy and ruin everything on its own, but the moment you tell it to do something, it's going to interpret those instructions in ways that you don't anticipate. And that's going to happen even if you do this perfectly. So you got to be really careful, I would say. So that's step one. Step two is, again, kind of understanding that the nature of agents is such that you are teaching essentially a machine coworker how to do something and improving it over time. If you don't know how that thing is done and how that work gets done, you're not going to get as much value out of these. Or the agent's going to, if you and the agent don't know how to do it, the agent's probably also sometimes smarter than we are in certain domains. So the agent's just going to replace you doing it otherwise, because if you don't know how it's done, who cares? But I would say that really understanding that this is a sequence of growth here. We recommend, we've talked about people should get better at prompting so they can get results out of AI tools. They should build GPTs or gems or projects to make those prompts scalable. But then from there, you need to start mapping your workflows so that you can apply AI assistants like GPTs to every step of those. That's all work I would be doing first. Some people just skip right to agents and get natively good with them. That's amazing. But at an organization, like, you need to know how the work is already done. There's no skipping that step. And you can use AI in so many wonderful ways to help you do that. But if you can't teach it to someone in your organization, you probably can't teach it to an agent. So
a disaster waiting to happen that way.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to put a plug in because I have to again. If you spend 6 hours in AI Academy's Scaling AI course on SmarterX, you'll get tons of ideas for what you should be doing next. You can see kind of where you are, get a lay of the land, and you'll really feel a lot more confident moving forward. I have to say, I found it super empowering from my perspective. So thank you for that. I think it was fantastic.
Thank you.
But before we wrap, I want to ask you to articulate the mindset shift that you most want sales and marketing leaders in our audience, right, in that B2B industrial sector to really be thinking about for them to, what shift are they making coming out of this conversation to really help them succeed moving forward here?
Yeah, I think the shift that you need to make is very high level, but I think has some obvious, like you can figure out obvious steps based on it, which is you are probably no longer going to predominantly be the one doing the work. You're going to be orchestrating and managing and overseeing, whether it's even just systems, a bunch of different chat windows, or probably agents eventually. You are going to be in that role. There is still plenty of things human individual contributors are going to be really important for. There's plenty of skills and domains and things that humans will be doing, but a lot of the stuff that we do in marketing and sales, and especially in the way that work is changing based on what's possible with AI, the best marketers and salespeople are going to inherently be managing these systems. And I realize it's like kind of an uncomfortable thing for people if you don't. It's not the same as managing people necessarily, but
it almost feels like going into tech, right? It feels like I've been doing this, and now you're asking me to do that.
100%. And this whatever word we want to use, that's called orchestration of these agents or of these systems. Yes, there's a tech component, there's a management component. So there's not a lot of you sitting down and like crafting the perfect deliverable. I mean, that happens still, but I would be getting really comfortable with that shift coming because it's going to require different skills, different mindsets, and different approaches. And it might require some like uncomfortable conversations with yourself and the types of work you do and don't like doing. I just would strongly argue if you don't think about making that shift, you don't want to get surprised when it really starts happening, because it's going to be very hard to sit here and say, well, I don't know about any of this stuff, or like, I've just been doing it the old way. Why can't I just as the human do it? There's just going to not be a question of the fact that the marketer or salesperson armed with AI agents who actually knows how to use them, not churning out slop, but like actively creating value with them, it's a no-brainer who's going to be running the campaigns or the department or the team or whatever. So yeah, I would just say that mindset shift is really important.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mike, where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, so two big ways. Go to SmarterX.ai. You can learn everything and anything about what we do, both through SmarterX as an overall company and our AI transformation work, as well as our AI Academy, which is an all-in-one online education platform we sell yearly licenses to, both individual and team licenses. We have some of the top companies in the world using the platform for AI education. This is really hard stuff to build yourself, I can tell you internally, which is why we built this company. So I would say check that out if you have any AI education needs. And then also we have a podcast that comes out every week that increasingly people seem to enjoy, which is the Artificial Intelligence Show, co-hosted by myself and our CEO and founder, Paul Raitzer. So just go look up the Artificial Intelligence Show on any of your podcast networks, and you can check us out. Each week we break down every single week the top news that's going on in AI, not just in marketing or sales, though that's a big part of it, but also business and society in general.
In depth, I must say. And great show notes, too. So you always know what you're getting into. Yeah. So you will, speaking of show notes, you will find links to anything that we referenced here in our show notes. So make sure to check those out. And Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. I really appreciate it.
And thanks for listening to The Changeover. If today's conversation got you thinking about how to move your team from experimentation to something more durable, that's exactly what we're here for. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Changeover podcast. Remember to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Wider.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you'd like to hear about next time by messaging Wider Group on social media. Thanks for watching.